Cameroon, Togo, and across Senegal. Don't miss our daily news bulletins, Newslink, educative and informative programs, and lots more. West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM. It's you speaking.
News, talk, music, get it all
24 hours
on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar, 7 p.m. in Lagos. Good evening and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. Here are the top stories. Togo's Council of Ministers President Gnassingbé predicts challenges and profound changes in 2026.
In
2026, I hope a new political culture will take hold, one where ideas are criticized, but never people.
Mali's transitional government dismisses several ranking security officials. Spill of oil products sparks public concern in Côte d'Ivoire's Grand Bassin environment.
It will have a truly considerable impact. The water quality will be lower, we won't be able to swim, and the fish that live in it will be disturbed.
Guinea's electoral body declares Doumbouya provincial winner of December 28 presidential election. Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for being with us. Newslink begins in Togo, where the president of the Council of Ministers, Faure Gnassingbé, says 2026 will be a decisive turning point for the country. Addressing the nation on Tuesday, Gnassingbé also delivered a solemn message focused on hope, stability, and transformation. This address comes at a pivotal political time marked by the recent adoption of the Fifth Republic. Abdoulaye Hassan has the details in this report.
At the outset of his address, Faure Gnassingbé extended his wishes for health, peace and serenity to all Togolese. The Prime Minister emphasized that 2025 will represent a decisive turning point for the country, a turning point that, according to him, will be both challenging and bring about profound changes. He specifically addressed Togo's entry into the Fifth Republic with the adoption of a parliamentary system.
This reform was carried out in a calm institutional climate, guided solely by the national interest. We will change our approach, revitalize our democracy, and open a new chapter without dismantling what we have built. To this end, we have set 3 simple priorities for the government: protected, integrated, and transformed. These priorities essentially summarized what I owe you as Prime Minister.
The President of the Council of Ministers reiterated the fundamental role of the opposition and announced that he had instructed the Minister of Justice to consider a presidential pardon for certain prisoners.
In 2026, I hope a new political culture will take hold, one where ideas are criticized, but never people. It is in this spirit of reconciliation that I have asked the Minister of Justice to implement the pardons and clemency decisions we made at the last Council of Ministers meeting. Togolese men and women, protected, united, transformed. This is our path for the coming year. May 2026 be a year of peace and balance.
However, many Togolese remain skeptical of the promises of change. For the Togolese authorities, 2026 brings challenges such as improving the living conditions of the population.
Abdoulaye Hassan with the details of that report filed by our correspondent Sylvie Ouedraogo in Lomé. Let's cross over to the Central Sahel region now, precisely in Mali, where the authorities announced the dismissal of several high-ranking security officials. They have been prosecuted in a case described by the authorities as an attempted coup and a conspiracy against the transitional government. Among them were Colonel Major Kassoum Goita, former head of intelligence services, Colonel Fode Malik Sissoko, former presidential aide-de-camp and former governor of the Kidal region, and Chief Superintendent of Police Mustafa Jakite. Kassoum Goita and Mustafa Jakite were arrested in November 2021 along with other security officials. They have been detained since then. According to their lawyers, the legal proceedings are still ongoing with no final judgment yet made public. This latest dismissals come on top of other similar decisions taken earlier in 2025. Still in the Central Sahel region, Burkina Faso's transitional government has announced total visa restrictions measures for American nationals. According to Burkinabe authorities, this decision is in response to a decision taken on December 16, 2025 by the United States regarding the strengthening of entry restrictions to their territory, a decision which now includes Burkina Faso. In a statement issued on Tuesday, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Regional Cooperation and Burkinabe Abroad, Karamoko Jean-Marie Traoré stated that Burkina Faso remains committed to mutual respect, the sovereign equality of states, and the principle of reciprocity in its international relations. However, the Burkinabe foreign minister said his country remains open to cooperation based on respect for mutual interests with all of its partners.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
We now focus on electoral matters. In Guinea, General Mamadi Doumbouya has been declared the provisional winner of the December 28, 2025 presidential election, securing an absolute majority of the vote. The final provisional results were announced Tuesday evening by the General Directorate of Elections after the centralization of 98.84% of results from polling stations nationwide. According to figures released by the Electoral Authority, General Doumbouya won by a wide margin, obtaining 4,594,262 votes, representing 86.72% of the valid ballots cast. Following the announcement, General Mamadi Doumbouya, candidate of the GDM movement, Generation for Modernity and Development, was officially proclaimed provisional winner of the presidential election. Here is an excerpt of Jenabu Kamara, Director General of Elections in Guinea.
The General Directorate of Elections, after centralizing, verifying and compiling the provisional results, acting in strict compliance with legality, proclaims the candidate Mr. Mamadi Doumbouya, candidate of GM2, having obtained an absolute majority of validly cast votes, to be declared elected in the presidential election of December 28, 2025 on a provisional basis, subject to validation by the Supreme Court, the only jurisdiction competent to decide definitively.
That's Jenabu Toure Kamara, the Director General of Elections in Guinea. At the same time, the African Union and ECOWAS election observation missions have released their joint findings on Guinea's presidential election. In the report, the continental and regional bodies commended the conduct of the polls, describing the election as free, credible, and transparent. However, they expressed concern over the disruption of internet connectivity before, during, and after the voting process. ECOWAS and the African Union also urged the Guinean authorities to release political detainees and to address the kidnapping of socio-political actors in the country. Christopher Aticho reports.
In their joint statement, ECOWAS and the AU election observation missions commended the overall smooth conduct of the election. They added that the observed irregularities did not undermine its credibility. Domitian Ndaizie is head of the AU mission.
The vote took place in a peaceful environment without hindrance, and major incidents likely to affect the integrity of the vote at the polling stations. The mission noted that the voters turned out in good numbers, with turnout varying between 15 and 30%. Some of the polling stations the mission visited opened on time.
However, observers say they noted a disruption in connectivity during the electoral process. In their recommendations, VAU and ECOWAS election observers advocate for the lifting of sanctions against Guinea, but also for the fight against enforced disappearances in the country.
The mission declares its urgent appeal to the African Union and the entire international community to provide greater support to the Republic of Guinea, particularly by lifting sanctions that still weigh on the country. To the government, fight more effectively against the phenomenon of kidnappings and disappearances of persons, which undermines citizens' confidence by clarifying the fate of the victims and supporting their families in a spirit of national solidarity.
After the General Directorate of Elections announced the provisional results, ECOWAS and the African Union called on candidates who rejected the results to seek redress through legal channels.
A report from our correspondent Channel Alpha Ibrahim and Balden Conakry, voiced by Christopher Atichu. Still on electoral issues, Gambians living abroad remain unable to vote in national elections despite long-standing government commitments to extend the franchise to citizens overseas. This issue has resurfaced following recent events in Banjul, where Guinean nationals residing in the Gambia were allowed to vote in Guinea's presidential election. The WADR's Banjul correspondent Sandona Mendy reports.
Guinean nationals casting their ballots in Banjul once again highlights the stark contrast in electoral access for Gambians living abroad. Despite being estimated in the hundreds of thousands, Gambians in the diaspora remain excluded from participating in elections back home. Since the change of the government in 2017, successive assurances have been made that diaspora voting would be introduced. These comments have repeatedly surfaced during constitutional reform processes and electoral debates. However, to date, no legal or administrative framework has been established to make external voting possible. Here are reactions from Gambians living abroad.
The diaspora should have their rights to vote, especially for those who have not changed their nationalities. Give the diaspora their rights to vote.
Gambians in the diaspora have the right to vote. Let them be given the right to vote. The only thing is to respect the democracy and human rights so that diaspora can vote in 2026. That's all.
Meanwhile, a political analyst and advocate insists that Gambians abroad remain full citizens with constitutional rights to participate in the country's electoral process. Biran Gay is a political science lecturer and researcher at the Center for Research and Policy Development.
We have seen extraordinary parliamentarians have excluded or denied diasporians the right to vote, which does not send a viable signal in terms of our democratic consolidation, because everybody should be franchised, and those in the diaspora needs to participate in elections. They need to vote during elections.
As another year draws to a close, Gambians in the diaspora continue to follow political developments at home from afar, watching but still unable to take part as future elections draw closer. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
Elsewhere in Cote d'Ivoire, an oil spill in Grand-Bassam last weekend is raising serious public concerns. Numerous images have circulated on social media, raising fears of severe environmental consequences. To prevent damage, access to the affected beaches was immediately restricted, and swimming, fishing and water sports activities have been suspended by Ivorian authorities until further notice. Sankle Janko tells us more.
According to an official statement from the Ivorian Ministry of the Environment, the incident occurred during the testing phase of light crude oil unloading at the Boer 2 site of the Ivorian Refining Company, SIR, located in the municipality of Port Boyd. This operation resulted in partial pollution of several surrounding beaches, notably in Grand-Bassam, Ozreti, Modeste, and Monduko. To prevent this situation from having lasting consequences on the environment and public health, the Ministry of the Environment has implemented emergency measures. These include the installation of floating booms to contain the pollution, the deployment of specialized teams for hydrocarbon recovery, and the progressive cleaning of the affected beaches. Simultaneously, an environmental assessment is underway to precisely measure the impact of this spill on marine and coastal ecosystems. Regarding these potential consequences, Ismail Coulibaly, an environmental journalist, expresses particular concern about the risk to both the marine ecosystem and local communities whose economic activities are severely disrupted.
It will have a truly considerable impact. The water quality will be lower, we won't be able to swim, and the fish that live in it will be disturbed. I think that if the authorities act quickly to try to counter this phenomenon, things can be managed. What I recommend is that the maritime authorities and the Ivorian Anti-Pollution Center, that is SIAPOL, really take appropriate measures to prevent this kind of event from happening again, because it affects our people and it also affects the environment.
While awaiting the conclusions of the environmental assessment, authorities are urging residents living near the shore to strictly adhere to safety guidelines, and cleanup operations continue with the stated objective of sustainably preserving the Ivorian coastline.
A report from our Abidjan correspondent, Marcel Ariston Bled, voiced by Sankule Janko. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa, Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Togo's Council of Ministers President Gnassingbé predicts challenges and profound changes in 2026. Mali's transitional government dismisses several ranking security officials. Spill of oil products sparks public concern in Côte d'Ivoire's Grand Bassam. Guinea's electoral body declares Doumbouya provincial winner of December 28 presidential election. Still ahead in the news, we have guest interview and a sports update. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for being with us. We are streaming live on YouTube at WADR and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Let's take you to Ghana, where the police in the Ashanti region have arrested 2 people after intercepting a large cache of military-grade ammunition concealed in an intercity passenger bus traveling from Accra to the northern part of the country. The seizure was made during a routine roadside security operation in the Ashanti region as law enforcement intensifies efforts to curb the illegal movement of arms and ammunition amid growing concerns over cross-border trafficking and regional insecurity. Now the editor reports.
The South Ashanti Regional Police say the arrests were made on December 26, 2025 at the Kantanso-Asankare checkpoint while the bus was en route from Accra to Walewale. A detailed search of the Kia Grandbird bus uncovered 2 carefully concealed containers holding 2,600 rounds of AK-47 ammunition. Officers also found a bag hidden beneath the driver's seat containing military items including 2 bulletproof plates, a helmet and a pair of boots. The suspects identified as the driver and his assistant were taken into police custody. The vehicle and all recovered items have been seized to support ongoing investigations. Police say the operation follows a string of similar interceptions in recent months. In May, officers arrested a 25-year-old man near the same checkpoint after ammunition fell from his bag on board a commercial bus. Earlier in April, police in the Volta region seized about 33,000 rounds of ammunition concealed in another passenger bus during a routine inspection. The regional police command has reiterated its commitment to fighting arms and ammunition trafficking and has appealed to the public to report suspicious activities. Authorities say sustained efforts is critical to preventing Ghana from being used as a transit route for weapons linking to rising insecurity in parts of West Africa. For WADR, Nadia
Abubakar Malami, alongside his wife and son, has been arraigned on money laundering charges. The multi-billion naira charges were pressed against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. The former minister pleaded not guilty at the Federal High Court in Abuja and has been remanded in custody pending the hearing of his bail application. WADR's Abuja correspondent Usma Umar reports.
The courtroom at the Federal High Court in Abuja was heavily guarded on Tuesday as operatives of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) brought in former Attorney General of the Federation Abubakar Malami, his son Abubakar Abdul Aziz Malami, and his wife Asabe Bashir. EFCC docked the trial on a 16-count charge bordering on money laundering, alleging the concealment and disguise of the illicit origin of about 8.7 billion naira. The alleged offences span between 2015 and 2025, a period that covers Malami's 8th-year tenure as Nigeria's chief law officer under the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari. Court officials read out the charges, which include allegations that the defendants used shell companies and third-party accounts to acquire high-value properties in Abuja, Kano, and Kebbi states. All three defendants pleaded not guilty. In his ruling, the presiding judge said fairness demanded that the EFCC be given time to reply and ordered that the defendants be remanded at the Kuje Correctional Center pending the hearing of the bail application set for January 2nd, 2026. After the ruling, Malami's legal team expressed satisfaction with the court's decision to adjourn the matter and follow due process.
We are pleased with the outcome of the ruling. As we all know, bail is entirely at the discretion of the court, and the court in its wisdom feels strongly that in the circumstance, the prosecution should respond. Why not? We are pleased with it. On Friday, by the special grace of God, we'll be here to take the application and we'll leave everything to the court to decide.
Beyond the courtroom drama, the Human and Environmental Development Agenda, HEDA, has submitted a fresh petition urging the EFCC to widen its investigations into additional allegations of financial mismanagement against the former Justice Minister. For now, Abubakar Malami remains in custody as the case adds to growing scrutiny over accountability and the rule of law at the highest levels of public office in Nigeria. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
Our guest this evening is Matthew Akimbodi, Executive Director, Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, CAPA. Akimbodi is an anti-graft campaigner in Nigeria who shares his thoughts on recent investigations into cases of money laundering and embezzlement of public funds by senior officials, particularly from the immediate past administration. Recall on Tuesday, Nigeria's former Minister of Justice and Attorney General Abubakar Malami and his son, including his wife, were charged by a court in Abuja on 16 counts of money laundering. As the development stirs debate and spurs reactions online, one question stands. Is this a sincere fight against corruption or a political witch hunt?
Thank you very much. For us, we welcome this current prosecution. This is very significant because we are talking about the chief prosecutor, former chief prosecutor for the country. You can also say the chief law officer of the Federation. This is a guy that's supposed to protect the rule of law, accountability, constitutionalism, and everything. That is now emerged in a monumental corruption case. And we see this as one of the biggest of the high-profile cases. It is significant, and it's going to set a major precedent that regardless of what you occupied, a time might come that the table will turn. So for us, it's a welcome development. We hope that the EFCC will prosecute this to the final and ensure that justice and accountability is done.
Now, Malami was the face of the Nigerian government or the frontman for Nigerian government in several negotiations and discussions that led to the return of looted assets or looted funds, especially those of former military head of state Sani Abacha back to the country. Now, until he left office, there were calls severally by CSOs about the transparency of these funds, where they are being kept, and even told they are being used in projects. This project should be made public, and also the amount should be disclosed. None of that really happened. Do you think this is the right time for the government to actually uncover and get some of these answers for Nigerians or to Nigerians?
During Malami's tenure, there's some controversies, I must say, surrounding his tenure. Some of those had to do with the way even the EFCC was disposing those assets. And I will not even go as far as There were also cases under Malami that the state entered non-prosecute. I think some of those cases should be reopened by the new administration because everything looks extremely suspicious now that the interest of the state, the judicial interest of the state, accountability, due process could have been compromised by the same man that was supposed to protect the law. I remember some lawyers saying that in some of the anti-corruption cases that were in court then, it was even the prosecution, of course, headed by Malami, that were destroying the cases. And so we then moved to those assets that were recovered. How were they disposed? Who negotiated those deals, if I use them? There were some out-of-court settlements. Everything today, because there is actually no way, there is no logical way Malami can explain the amount of assets that is now traced to him, his son, and his son's wife. Yeah, so those cases that he presided over should be revisited. Not the cases, including the assets that were recovered and how those assets were disposed.
What should be the lesson to the current government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who already there are speculations, allegations from certain quarters that there is gross misconduct, abuse of office, corruption, and embezzlement of public funds going on as we speak?
So, for us, number one is that the EFCC or the current administration will summon the courage and prosecute this case to its logical end. Then they will set a precedent. They will set a precedent even for they themselves in the current government. For them to know that, look, if you occupy public office today, your conduct, everything you are doing, another government tomorrow can come and open them and you'll be made to account for the Nigerian people, that everywhere you represented the Nigerian state, you will be made to account for that one day. So that's the precedent setting that we're having today. And we're also going to use this as civil society groups. We're going to flash this on them. We'll use this to call them out. If you can prosecute Malami, if we have cases within this government, yes, we can then say, look, do not be selective in your anti-corruption crusade. Let this go around. Let it be wholesale, regardless of political affiliation or whether some people are in government or out of government.
Matthew Akimbode is the Executive Director of Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa. And indeed, in the world of sports, here is Christopher Aticha. I've already seen some firing results coming out of ongoing matches in the AFCON Morocco 2025. Hello, Chris.
Thank you very much, Augustine Collian. Indeed, as you rightly said, there are some results produced today as well as other games that have already been played. But let's begin with Sudan taking on Burkina Faso. And unfortunately for Sudan, Burkina Faso actually thrashed them out 2-0 in today's encounter. And then it means that Burkina Faso actually stands the chance of actually qualifying from the group stage, because at the moment it gives Algeria 9 points and also Burkina Faso 6 points. I'm talking about Algeria. They also won their game today against Equatorial Guinea, beating them 3-1 as well.
Now, does it mean that Algeria will top Group E? Because to my understanding, Algeria has not lost a match in this group matches or fixtures.
Absolutely, Augustine. Algeria hasn't lost a game in this particular group match, in this particular group games as well. And it means that Algeria tops the group with 9 points, followed by Burkina Faso 6 points, and then Sudan also coming through with 3 points, and Equatorial Guinea without any points in this Group E at the moment.
Can we safely say Burkina Faso stands a chance?
Absolutely. Burkina Faso stands a chance of qualifying to the round of 16.
Right. Are there games coming up tonight?
Absolutely. Tonight also, Ivory Coast will be taking on Gabon, and then we would also have Mozambique also taking on Cameroon at exactly 8 p.m.
Cote d'Ivoire is the reigning champions, and Gabon is likely to just leave out of tonight's matches, to leave AFCON. Would they really do something, or perhaps just to show a load of strength and put smiles on their fans' faces?
Well, absolutely. Gabon is actually sitting at the bottom of Group F without any points. They have actually played 3 games. Tonight's game will be their 3rd game, but already they have actually lost all their 2 games. But Cote d'Ivoire sit on top of Group F with 4 points, followed by Cameroon, who is also having equal points at 4 points, and then Mozambique 3 points. And so the game for Mozambique can either be a make or break for them. If they should be able to win, then they stand a chance of actually qualifying from Group F. But if they do not, then so be it.
Thank you, Chris, for the sports. And that brings us to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. A special thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Mustafa Sek for the technical support. I am Augustine Curley. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember,